I was heavily into video games, like not just The Sims, which we have a video on, by the way, but also Grand Theft Auto. I did San Andreas, and I did Grand Theft Auto 4. I did Call of Duty. I was a bit of a tomboy growing up, you know.
You played some of the heavy hitters.
Yeah, I did. You know, did lots of online video gaming. We had a Nintendo Wii. We had a Nintendo DS Lite. We had the PlayStation at one point, an Xbox 360. So it was like my parents gave me a Game Boy Color when I was really young. That was like the second Game Boy that came out at the time after the first Game Boy that was, I think, was just black and white. So I kind of grew up with this stuff. And then I watched Robert and Marlou's video on video games, actually, and talking about like who really runs the industry. It's quite fascinating. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. So they're here today to kind of walk us through what they found. And then Jeremy's with us as well on Zoom because he worked in the industry. And Jeremy, you're here to during the conversation too. So welcome to everybody.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Good to be on the show.
Marlou, Robert, what do you guys have for us? Like what research did you look into to figure out like there's something really sinister going on with this industry?
Yeah. So for us to really understand where, you know, who's actually controlling most of these industries in the world, you know, we've done our research on music and Hollywood, and we even saw some of your videos on Hollywood, and we actually used some of them in our music presentations. But to really understand what's going on, we received a question on gaming, and we thought, wow, this is an interesting topic to really dive deep in and see what, you know, who's actually behind the gaming sector. So obviously, as we know, if you look at who controls the world, we have to go back to the 1500s. We have to go back to the Reformation period, the Counter-Reformation period, where Ignatius...
Really?
That is where we went back to see where did it all start, and look at the money trails, and look at the movements in all these markets, and where the Jesuit order that was founded by Ignatius of Loyola in 1540, where their tentacles have spread in this world.
Wow. I know it takes a lot of money to make these games. Sometimes they are employing hundreds and hundreds of people to make these things, right? And I always wondered, like, I guess when you're making that much money, there's a lot at stake. And I always wondered, where are they getting all this money to start these things? So I'm looking forward to this conversation.
But if you look at the industry, you look at the finances, you know, and you see how prominent the gaming sector is in our world, you know, and you look at, for instance, Hollywood, and you look at it's around about a $32 billion industry. And then you look, and you look at the music. I was thinking music industry would be incredibly high, you know, music in Hollywood, but gaming is more than double the combination of Hollywood and the music industry out there.
Yeah, it's almost 4 times the revenue in the gaming sector than in music and movies.
I've heard that like the sports arena where they do like the EA sports kind of games are sometimes greater than like all the sports put together.
Right.
Like they're generating that much money.
I did not realize that because I always thought that gaming was kind of niche. Like you always think of like, well, more men game more than women is what you kind of hear, right? And like when you meet people, it's everybody's into movies, everybody's into music, but not everybody's into video games. So it's crazy that there's so much money going around in that.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, who's controlling the money? Who's controlling who controls the banking systems in this world? You know, if you look at and we can show you a diagram maybe. We can pull it up. If you look at the Jesuit order, what was the aim? The aim was to counter the Reformation. So the aim was to keep us in a system, or in a Babylonian system. And that's what the Reformation was trying to escape from. But they're trying to keep us in there. So if they control the money systems, if they control the banking, if they control the medical world, if they control the politics and all the industries out there, then they have us exactly where they want us. So you have the Templars, the Knights of Templars. And if you go look at their function in history, you'll see that it was in finance. And that's really interesting. Hey? And if you look at the Knights of Malta, and that's where the Maltese cross comes from, you'll see that that it's in the medical system. So you'll see the Maltese crosses on your ambulances and on your medical kits.
Interesting.
Hey? So
Wow.
So they control that whole sector. And you wanted to say something about the Jesuit connection here.
Yeah, just before that, if you look at the world, you see so many different things. You see different religions, you see different political parties, and all of those things. But in the end, there's only two sides. You might think that it's this side, and another side, but it's only at the end the devil against God. And one side tries everything in their power to destroy the other side. And God there is protecting us and calling us out of these systems, not to be hurt, not to be damaged or destroyed, but to be restored to what He wants for us. And when we realize that, we see that the Jesuits, who are the people who want to take you away from the Bible, who wants to take you away from God, implement all of these different kinds of tactics to, in the end, destroy us.
Yeah. And what is that system? Babylon is a system of idolatry.
Jeremy, did you notice anything about that when you were working in the gaming industry? Like, was there something you saw that just made you feel uncomfortable about, hey, there's a battle between good and evil going on here?
Well, I'll tell you what, the producer of this thing couldn't go 5 seconds without saying something negative about the Bible or Christ. Hell with that. This wasn't really the industry. But this was a powerful organization between it, but beneath it anyway, that, they really wanted to recruit me and my skills and abilities for not just this, but a whole career that they would have had laid out for me if I had, fully gone all the way with it. I mean, honestly, within 5 minutes of meeting this guy in person, I knew that there was something very wrong here, very wrong. But
You know, I think I was shocked. I didn't grow up playing all these games, and I can remember when we first did a couple documentaries on the whole topic of video games. I was actually shocked at how many religious ideas make it into these things. But it's not like, religious ideas that they're like promoting this as a good thing. It just seemed like it was always an attack, always a, breaking down of they're the villains, and you need to use magic and sorcery to win, and it's kind of that one step further than just passively watching. It's like what you do with movies. You just passively watch those. It's true. But this is actually like making that decision that character is going to shoot that guy in the head or whatever, Yeah.
Well, and even like when I did a video on The Sims, I played The Sims for years, and that was another thing my parents introduced me to. I remember very clearly that for, I think it was a Dutch holiday similar to Christmas, and my parents gave me a burned copy of The Sims, like not the original game, like it was like stolen from the internet, like here, you can have this video game. And that was my first introduction to it. And then so I made the video about The Sims. I showed that, you're able to now play your character as a ghost, like live your whole life as a ghost, as speaking to the dead, which the Bible speaks very much against. You're able to befriend the ghosts. Your Sims and your Sims are able to have relationships with the ghost, marry the ghost, take selfies with the ghost. I mean, it's just full on spiritualism, but it's packaged in this cartoony kind of way. And that's just one of the games, it's also very much strongly promoting homosexuality. In fact, I don't know if you guys saw that video. I think, Marlou, you said you saw the video I did on The Sims, right? Where I kind of showed these things.
Yes, I saw it. I think that's one of the first videos I saw that you produced.
Yes. Yeah. So in that video, I also showed that simply you just slow down the ads for The Sims and they have full on like lesbians kissing each other in there. But you don't see it because it's so quick, all those images on purpose. But when you slow it down, it's like right there in your face multiple times. So, there's a very strong fight, I would say, against religion in video games. Halo, same thing, lots of religious themes. I would say Assassin's Creed as well. And that's a big franchise that lots of people have played, myself included.
And it's interesting how they systematically lead you to the more sinister type of games. Imagine where it started with Snake or whatever. Even Snake had an agenda there. And Mario Brothers, remember you mentioned Nintendo. And then, the games that you see today, we can show you some of the covers of Warcraft. And all the Warcraft slogans are really interesting. Look at this. It is Wrath of the Lich King, or the War Within. Isn't that interesting? The War Within.
Oh, wow.
Tides of Darkness, Reign of Chaos. That's what it's about. Or Diablo. Yeah. It's all about, it's basically
Satanic.
It's satanic, yeah. And
yeah, Diablo means Satan, yeah.
You mentioned Nintendo, and it's interesting to see the creators of these consoles, of these brands. When you look at Hiroshi Yamauchi, he was a Japanese, and who do you think he climbed in bed with in the industry, to make a mark for himself with Walt Disney? And I know Scotty or both of you know Walt Disney quite well from Hollywood and how he's permeated into all these industries. How is that possible? How does that work?
Walt Disney's really, and I think people have not really kind of made that connection. I'm talking like the people in the general population have made that connection that really they are bringing this candy-coated witchcraft to everybody. And we've seen in our day and age a super rise in spiritualism. And, it's like today, like people don't even think twice about it. And, they watch us and really, there's spiritualistic stuff in there? And it's like, yeah.
Everywhere.
But, I think the gaming industry is just taking it one step further. There's a lot of money at stake. And I'm fascinated by, what you guys are kind of bringing to the table here is it's like some of this money goes all the way back to the 1500s. How do you see that line to today?
Oh, the money. So they obviously control all the banking systems. I know there was a man, and I can't remember the article, but it was Jacob Schiff. He was a 33 degree, and he was in charge of the banking systems in America, amongst other things. So he had to ensure that the banking systems belong to the order. And that's when you look at BlackRock. BlackRock is also involved, in the gaming sectors and Hollywood and Vanguard and all these top companies in the world who own like 70% of the world. Who actually owns BlackRock? Okay? So just back at Walt Disney, before we get into the money, is he has a membership card of the Order of Demolay, which is very interesting. So Demolay, that's your youth, that's your base level fraternity in your Freemason system. You have your Scottish rites and you have your York rites. You have your more esoteric agenda on the one end, and you have your medieval chivalry on the York rite side, and your Christianity, Christian mythology and all of that. But you have your baseline, and that's where they train the youth. And he was a part of this. So Walt Disney he's definitely a Freemason, that we know. And that's how he obviously weaved his way into the gaming sector to a large degree, actually.
Yeah, they're building up ideas through movies, through his theme parks, and all of those things. That when a game comes out, you're familiar with the concept and the characters, and then you want to play it. I remember watching Harry Potter, that series, or the series of movies, and afterwards I felt to myself, if this could only be real, it would be so amazing, because why wouldn't you want to cast a spell to levitate something? And they make it so exciting that when the games came out, you can actually play this character now, and then you can have this virtual thing happen in front of your eyes. It doesn't feel virtual anymore. Now you're a part of it. Now you can build your legacy like Hogwarts Legacy. You can play the character of a wizard that was introduced through the movies.
Takes you away from reality, though, hey?
Yeah, we just did a show on the Bowen Brothers channel and their Heritage and Hope, and it was pretty amazing. Like one of the ladies that was on there with us had just grew up kind of playing around with the Harry Potter books and interested in those kind of movies and stories, and then she found herself buying the cauldron and buying the souvenirs and all of those things kind of came into her life in a way of like, in the same way that you just mentioned, Marlou. Wouldn't it be neat if I could actually do those things in real life? And when you go to the bookstore, it's like the witchcraft books are right next to these fake stories, and it's a very easy jump from the fake into the real, and I think that's what's happening with the video games too.
And she even said that that she started seeing demons as she was reading all these Harry Potter books, and one demon was even holding a knife and all those kind of things. So it was some pretty intense stuff, and like you guys are talking about, it's all over the video games too. I mean, like it's in The Sims, which, like I said, seems so innocent, but it's because it's so cartoony, right? But it's really just testing the waters. And again, I started with Nintendo. I started with like the 101 Dalmatians game, and then like Super Mario Brothers game, and then it went into The Sims, and later on I was full on playing Grand Theft Auto, where you're like basically killing everybody around you. But just a quick question for Jeremy. Jeremy, what was it for you? Because what was it for you that got you into the gaming and then eventually working on something like that?
Well, I mean, for what it's worth, the only game I was ever really super into was Doom for the PC. I probably sunk tens of thousands of hours into the custom levels and all this yada yada. But otherwise, I really wasn't much of a gamer. Wasn't much of a gamer, but I did do a lot of art and animation. I posted online, and then one day I get an email saying I'm starting this project. It's going to have so and so people in it. Do you want to work on it? And that's how it happened with me, just getting involved in that. And, eventually I did quit. I did walk away from it. And I mean, I haven't touched anything like that since. So.
You mentioned Doom there. And I remember I spoke to someone after we did our gaming thing, and he told me the only game ever to give him nightmares was Doom. He said he played it. I can't remember if it's Doom 1 or 3 or around there. But he said it was so satanic with the pentagons and all the imagery that you find in that game that it actually gave him nightmares. He couldn't sleep.
Well, I got nightmares when I researched the top 10 gory games out there just before we actually did, and it was insane what they actually do. You can see limbs being cut off and the blood squirting out, and it's just insane what they, what's happening today.
That was one of the biggest reasons why they hired me. Because they knew that the death animations that I could produce for all these characters would be just so over the top and visceral. And I mean, I really did sink my heart into a lot of it too at the time, I will say. So, that was one of the big things about it that they really wanted from me. It's like, we know you can do this. So The graphic imagery.
The military are trained on shooting games, and the school shooters, they spent how many hours was it? 13 hours or something a day or something on first person shootout games before they actually went into the schools and committed those murders. So it just shows you what, the effects of these games. We've been so desensitized, over the years. Slowly but surely, they desensitize us over the years.
Yeah, your brain can't distinguish between virtual and reality. So now when you're actively playing the shooting game, your brain isn't registering it as this is something virtual that's happening. It's registering it as these people are being killed now.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, you also have the Bible verse, that, if you're angry with your brother, right, then, it's like as if you killed him. And so we know that the actual act doesn't necessarily have to be going through and shooting and killing. But if you have that same spirit and you're, getting enjoyment out of that, or you're desiring for that thing to die. I mean, it's like the devil's created this like cartoonish version of things that we are now making those things do these sinful things. But really, it's our own brains that are desiring those things as well. So I think that when you really say, okay, I want to really fully order my life after what God is asking, I think most Christians would be like, I don't want to play that kind of a game,
And the creators of these games, like I said before, Nintendo and who was the other guy? Akio. He received so many of these awards, and he was Sony. So your PlayStation. There was Akio Morita. He was also Japanese. All these creators, they were knighted by the Queen for their contribution to society. Tell me, what contribution did they make to society? And who is royalty? Are they subservient to the Jesuit order, to the papacy?
Yeah, I think your father has a video on that, right? I remember watching it. I think it was from Malta to Crete, or Crete to Malta, one of those.
Yeah.
I think it's in that series, if I'm correct.
Or it could also be Rekindling the Reformation. One of those, where he then states or shows how the throne of England is actually being rented back by the papacy, or by the Queen from the papacy.
Wow.
Where else do we have this in the Bible, though? Hey, remember Jehu, king of Israel, was subservient to the king of Assyria. Hey? So he could reign in his sphere, but he was subject to the king. And that's what we have on earth. It's nothing else, nothing different under the sun. Yeah.
And finding that link between the Jesuits and the gaming industry, or the Freemasons and the gaming industry, is quite difficult, because there's not a lot of paper trails that are given. In the games, you can see the symbolism and things like that, but an actual connection was quite hard to find. And in our research, we were looking for it, and eventually we came across an article in the Chicago Catholic, which was interesting because the heading says how a game designer turned Jesuit ended up writing about space religion in another game. So in the article, it goes on, it says that he was busy experiencing, he was driving in traffic, he got angry for something that happened, and then he thought about, but this isn't right. He wants to be spiritual, so how can he get angry for people in the traffic? And the article then starts here at, this experience also sent Lisagang on a spiritual quest, which would eventually lead him to leave his work as a designer for games like Fallout and Skyrim and join the Jesuits, the same religious order as Pope Francis. So then he went and he asked, but how can he be in gaming and still be in the Jesuit order and things like that? And the next part of the article said that his work on Starfield, the game that he then designed, has led to questions about whether writing games could be part of his future ministry. And then it says, Jesuits have a long history of working in the arts and as writers. Acclaimed playwright Bill Kane, who also wrote for the now defunct television series House of Cards, is a Jesuit priest. Jesuits have also excelled at astronomy, education, and other pursuits, said Jesuit Father Tom Rees, a religion news service columnist. Rees said Jesuits work closely with their superiors to find the right match for their ministry. And then they say there has to be a value add that comes from the Jesuits' participation.
Always.
So he went back into gaming. And if you're a Jesuit, there has to be something that's of value in the work that you do. And if we look at the reason why the Jesuits were formed to counteract the Reformation, that is the same value that he needs to add. So in this game that he's designing, he needs to add that value of countering the Reformation.
You know, a while ago, a couple of years ago, we released a documentary that kind of talked about The Chosen. And then I did a follow-up documentary this year about The Chosen and kind of like the very, very blatant, if you look into it, secret society connections to it, like the Jesuits mainly, but also, you know, how they're connected to Freemasons and the Knights Templars. And in that documentary, I quoted this study that was done by a professor. He was like a professor in like theater in Los Angeles, something like that. He wrote actually about the history of how the Jesuits got involved with Hollywood. And he talks about how it started obviously with Jesuit theater. And the whole purpose was, as he quoted, that they were trying to use theater to bring people back to Catholicism, Protestants mainly, because that was their ultimate goal of the Jesuits. And he also wrote about how the Jesuits at that time didn't care about the genre. Anything would go as long as it meant for the purpose of reaching their goal of turning people back to Catholicism. So even if it's like violent or like romance or sexual, didn't matter. They could use all of that,
even torture,
as long as they achieved their goal.
Yeah, the end justifies the means is exactly the quote. Yeah, in Great Controversy as well. But I mean, and remember the online gaming. What was that called again? Ebelin.
Yeah.
Hey, Ebelin. So they find comfort in playing online, like Warcraft and all of this. There was Ebelin, I think, was he was a sickly boy. I think he died at the age of 25, but he had this whole thing in a massive article on the news about finding comfort on online gaming and discovering himself and finding love and all of these things in an online game. But he's playing Warcraft, he's killing people, he's having relations with people online, you know what I mean? And this is good. This is a good thing. Yeah. Hey?
You know, it's sad. It's sad to me that God made this beautiful like gift of life, and you know, these relationships. I mean, that's really what we're doing here, right? Is a relational. I don't want to say experiment, but you know, we are living out this life that we need to, you know, help our fellow brethren, love on people, help ease their pain and suffering. And here we have this like really strange, like, activity, this juxtaposition of like, instead of helping, we're wanting to destroy, and you know, it's like I got to collect and gather as much money as I can so that, you know, everybody else. And you know, even on just a physical level, these game industries, they don't care that people are spending 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 hours at the detriment of their own health.
Right.
And it's like, you know, people are really being destroyed playing these things. It's not bringing happiness. I mean, sitting in a dark room and staring at a screen, you know, if you saw an animal do that, you would think that animal, there's something wrong with him. You know,
this is true.
It'd be like, you know, why is he sitting there staring at this box for 12 hours out of the day? Right.
Yeah.
And so this cannot be good on our brains, you know?
Yeah. No, I'm with you.
I would like to add that, I mean, it's 8 to 12 hours a day. So where's the parents?
Right.
Where are the parents in all this?
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is definitely a symptom of the breakdown of society where family is eroding, and, you know, give the kid a video game or whatever, just keep him busy, right? And like, I wonder to see where it's all going to go even a generation or two from now.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
It's very telling about the first world. It's very telling about the first world and the economy of time and everything, all that, and what it's going to be producing for the young people of the upcoming generations. You know,
the parent is the video game system. That's what it pretty much turns out to be.
And the designers and the creators, they actually employ psychologists to make the game more attractive, to have more gaming hours played on their game, so that they can sink people more into their agenda, into their game, so they can make more money. The Bible makes more and more sense when it says money is the root of all evil. Hey, it's just what it's all about, is making money. Contribution, money. Bill Gates was also knighted. He was part of Xbox. Hey, he was the founder of Microsoft, exactly. I mean, they're all in the same pool here. They're all playing this game together.
Ad break.
Hey, subscribe to Lula Studios en español. Vas a encontrar muchos videos de Lula Studios que están traducidos en español y también contenido exclusivamente para nuestra audiencia latina. If you want to learn Spanish, a great way will be watching our videos for practice.
We also had a video showing someone playing Fortnite. And I think you guys also did a video on Fortnite. But the kid he didn't go to school for 2 years because he was playing Fortnite. When someone came to his house to interview him, he was busy playing. He didn't even put the gaming console down. And when their parents turn off the internet, if they turn off the console, he gets violent physically. And he starts hitting his mom. That's how far he's been pulled into this gaming sector.
Yeah, and the Fortnite specifically was to me kind of a shocker, because it was designed in this very like cartoony, bubbly world. I mean, if that was realistic, people might have been a little bit more freaked out or alarmed of that. But the fact that it would just had that kind of like, sort of playful, bubbly look to it. I remember Keith mentioning one thing, one of the other guys on our channel, one time he said, if you just actually took those players that you're actually trying to shoot, so you're the last man standing, and you swapped them out with your family members, so those little characters became your family, would you feel differently about that? As a Christian, what if they were Bible characters? What if one of the guys was Jesus? Would you feel comfortable going and shooting him to try and like dance over his dead body? I think that there's something sadistically wrong with that.
And he even said, what if it's a bunch of babies?
Yeah, if it's a bunch of babies, like when you kind of change the look of it or the context of it, then I think most people would be like, yeah, that's not right. That's disgusting, But it's like they're riding this very fine line of it's a cartoon and it's just for fun, but you're killing people and trying to be the last person standing. And to me, that's just not a heavenly character trait.
Yep.
No, not at all. No. And speaking of Fortnite, interesting, that's Epic Games. And they also, they integrate, they all integrated. So Walt Disney, so it reads here actually, Epic Games will bring together Disney's beloved brands and franchises with a hugely popular Fortnite in a transformational new games and entertainment universe. So everything is integrated. Games start being portrayed in movies and other way around, hey?
Yeah, and the article continues where it says, this marks Disney's biggest entry ever into the world of games and offers significant opportunities for growth and expansion.
Yeah, if you want to go a little bit deeper, you look at the Scottish rites and you look at the York rites. If you go into the temple, the Scottish rites temple, and I'm sure you know about this, but you'll see the symbolism is really interesting. Hey, like you said in Doom and all these areas, you have the symbolism. But in the Scottish rite, you have that sign of Anu. And then you have the sun god, Shamash, at the top as you go in. And the sign of Anu, the biggest sign of Anu, well, first of all, sign of Anu is basically the mark of Cain. It's the rulership over evil. Hey? So if you look at the largest sign of Anu in the world, it's at the Vatican City.
Oh, wow.
Hey?
Yeah.
Is it, you mean like the sundial in the middle of the square?
That, if you look at it, you'll see the sign of Anu. the mark of Cain.
And they are all interconnected. And this is something that I explained as well in that second documentary in The Chosen, is that, and I actually got this, your dad kind of helped me to understand this from his videos, but that really, it started with the Knights Templars, and then when you look at Albert Pike's book, Morals and Dogmas, and Albert Pike is a 33rd degree Freemason who wrote that book, which basically, like, the way we hold the Bible as Christians is like, this is our book and this is our literature. That's basically what that book is to them. And Albert Pike writes in there, yeah, the Knights Templars, they're supposedly went underground, but he's like, no, they actually morphed into later on, like the Freemasons and all those kind of things. And the Knights Templars came about as an order by the Catholic Church as well, that was supposed to suppress anybody. It started with suppressing, helping pilgrims that came to Jerusalem to protect their pilgrims. And eventually it became something where they suppressed anybody that was speaking or standing up against the Roman Catholic faith. So it's just another order that does the same thing. And again, they morphed into Freemasonry later on. They went underground.
Yeah, there's nothing new under the sun. Mm-hmm. Everything that has been in the past is still continuing now, and we're moving towards a climate or climax of where everything is going to end. But what Satan is doing so masterfully is he's creating all of these environments where you can feel a sense of self-worth. If you play a video game, you can accomplish things that you can't accomplish in real life. You can be a football star. You can be the best person in the military, the highest officer. You name it, you can achieve it on that game. And then you feel the sense of self-worth, so you don't have to go out and do something. You don't have to go and read the Bible. You don't have to look at what your identity is in Christ. You can just be. There's no there's no urge into something more. It's just relax, be who you want to be.
It's a false security.
Yeah.
False security, and it's all disguised. I mean, if you become, like you said, if you're in a high position in the military, whatever, you can become a Freemason, but you have no idea what's going on in the bottom levels. Hey, It's only when you start climbing those ladders, and once you hit the 32 level, it's too late. Hey, and your 33 degrees, that's a significant contribution to society. That's why most of these guys like Bill Gates and all these guys are 33 degree Masons, because they have made that, they know what they're doing. They are aware of the contributions that they're making to Satan's game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like a few months after this project started, the producer sat down with me and he says, we got something I usually don't talk about this stuff, but he says, we got something very important we need to talk about. He says, the game's going to do well. We know it's going to do well. You're going to make a lot of money. We're going to be sure that you can have a career. And then he says to me, what do you really want? What do you really want? Do you want mansions? Do you want cars? Do you want women? Do you want boats? Do you want airplanes? What do you really want? He says to me, would I sell my soul for even greater opportunities than this? You're going to believe whatever you want, but it happened. And I laughed, and it's like, what are you talking about? So, like, even if I had a soul, why would I sell it to you for anything, right? Mm-hmm. And he laughs and he pats me on the back and says, you just think about it. You just think, and it never came up again. Though all sorts of other things did over the next year that I was over there. But I mean, that happened, and I mean, I believe it. I absolutely believe that if I had gone down that rabbit hole, who knows where it would have led to, man. Just interjecting with because you're saying there's levels to it and all this, and I mean, they wanted me, dude. They wanted me.
I mean, we just look at today. We look at now. Look at Katy Perry in that interview. Hey, she's like, well, that guy came to me and he said, do you want fame? Do you want money? And I said, and I sold my soul to the devil. Haha. It's really, really cool. It's really, really cool.
Like there's these videos where these celebrities are basically just saying, oh yeah, there's somebody behind the curtain there, And of course, most people might, oh yeah, sure, whatever. And it's a very different thing when it's staring directly across the table from you, though. Very different thing, man.
We shot a video recently with a lady. She grew up in the Caribbean, and her father was a high up voodoo priest, very high up. And when her father passed away, she was the next person in line to basically take over, and she was being groomed to become the next voodoo priest. And she had conversations with Satan herself. She thought Satan was her friend. Her father had conversations with Satan, and she said there are many, many celebrities, politicians, even in the United States, who came down here who would make sacrifices to Satan through her father so that they could become famous. And her father was even telling them, this is what you need to write in your lyrics, because this is part of the deal. So we know this is real. And now praise God, she's a Christian. You know, she gave her life to Jesus and was dealing with demonic stuff for many years after that, but God gave her victory over that and protected her. But it's real. It's a real thing. Even Beyonce's sister, right? There was a warlock, an interview on YouTube there was a warlock who became a Christian, and he said that he was also somewhere in one of those countries, not in the United States, working at this witchcrafty voodoo-like store, and Beyonce's sister walked in getting some supplies. So, you know, we know what they're dealing with.
They have to be, part of their order is to be transparent. They're laughing, you know, they've deceived us in such a manner that we have no idea what's going on anymore. They have all the symbolism, which is on your Scottish right side. You know, your symbolism, it's everywhere in the world. The in linguistic programming, you know, the programming in cartoons and all these things. I mean, now I watch. I mean, my son does watch TV from time to time, but I'm very wary when it comes to what he's watching. You know, you see these symbolism, you're like, ooh. You know, I'm not going to allow you to watch that because I know what they're doing, and without you knowing, they get your children. You know, they pull them into this
and it's not
system.
It's not just the passive, maybe one here, one there. You know, I think it kind of works on the same on both sides of the fence. I don't think that just because you listen to one, you know, Bible text that all of a sudden you're going to be like, oh, you know, I'm all in for God, right? It's a sort of a building up, and you're kind of understanding and you're learning about, you know, the government of God and the world that God has created for us. And the more information that you have, the more it solidifies in your mind. And I think that the same way is true on the other side. I don't think it's one video game that all of a sudden you're going to sign up for Satan, but it's just this habitual, constant, like, you know, coming back to that and getting worse and worse and more, you know, crazier games and, you know, crazier themes in those games. And I think these kids don't realize, or even adults, I think the majority of people are in their 30s, I think that are playing some of these games too sometimes. So, you know, it's just that habitual thing. And, you know, if you gave God a chance, just give him the Daniel challenge, right? 40 days, I'm going to just, you know, spend time with you, God. Just observe. This is what I always tell young kids too. And when they're just like, oh, you know, this is doing nothing to me. And I said, have you ever tried to, like, you know, just give your attention and your time to God and see how that makes you feel? I mean, I think that there is some real proof in the mental mind, the clarity when you actually spend that time with God, as opposed to you're just spending a month, you know, shooting and killing everybody. And there's got a big contrast between those two things. And so, you know, if you're on the fence and you're questioning it, give God a chance, try it, and you'll see that it's much different.
Mm-hmm.
I want to add something to that since you mentioned Daniel. So, I mean, this basically ties into how I'm even here now talking with you. So it was the summer of 2015. I'd been invited to live on Vancouver Island to work on the project. I was only out there for about a year before I just couldn't take it anymore. You know, all sorts of stuff that had been going on. So I go back home. In summer 2015, I'm still working on this thing though. And I'm tucking into a long night of drawing, and I go to YouTube, and right there at the very top of my recommended is an amazing facts video. There is no possible explanation for why this would be there at all. I'm not looking up any Christian media. I'm not looking up anything like this. Of course, at this point in my life, I am seriously questioning a lot of things and everything that's going on. And there is this amazing facts video that's in there, and it's specifically about the book of Daniel and all this stuff. And it's also the one where Doug Batchelor shows all the different slides between, like, St. Peter's Cathedral and how all government buildings share the same aesthetic, and also, all sorts of stuff like that. And, I watched this video, and I guess I could say that my life has been everything before that video and then everything after. Because, like, it just blew me away, just absolutely blew me away. All the prophecies of Daniel and everything like that. And at this point, yeah, no, I mean, here I am talking with you, of course. And for anybody who's listening, who may be on the fence, you just gotta give it, you just gotta go for it yourself, man. Yeah, and you'll see, it's not fairy tales, and it's not, but it's been a interesting ride so far. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, we need to be really selective how we spend our time, and that will form us. Do we spend our time in the Bible and in the Word? And yes, if you don't spend time in the Bible and the Word, it is boring to even consider it, because you are so encapsulated with the things of this world. But we are all sinful beings. So all of us, everyone sitting around this table as well, we all need to be wary of where we spend our time. Even I, when I sit in my in the evening, I lie in my bed and I watch a what's that? TikTok, thanks. And you're watching TikTok, and it's about a cat and a dog or whatever. The next one is like, okay, but this is interesting, and then you start getting carried away, and all of a sudden, you spent an hour and you haven't spent time with God, and you're so tired, you're like, I'm going to give a quick prayer and I'm just going to go to bed. You wake up in a storm. Everyone is affected by it in the morning, and you are affected because you just had a little bit of, selectiveness. Yeah.
Well, after I
So true.
After I started reading the Bible and came to Christ, I had this conviction that video games, it's not the right direction to go in. But a time went past, and then you kind of convince yourself, but it's not that bad. Maybe the shooting games are bad, but I'll just play sport games. I'll don't go to the bad things, and just a sport game. And it started off like that, and then before you know it, you're back into the things that you shouldn't play anymore. Or, for instance, you're playing sport games, and then you're starting after work, you play a few rounds, and then you feel like you just want to accomplish the next race or the next goal or just the next thing. And before you know it, you've been sitting there the entire evening, you didn't sleep, and then you skip Bible because it's more important to get your sleep now because you have to go to work again. So all of that takes you away from God. And when He takes you away from God, God wants us to have noble characters. He wants us, a noble character. He wants us to have pure thoughts. He wants us to have steadfast principles. But if we don't spend time with Him, if we don't read the Bible and we spend time with all of these other things, it's not going to be easy to have a noble character, to be a good person.
And there's another element to it as well.
Yeah.
And that is winning and losing. Isn't a game always about winning and losing?
Yep.
It's true.
Hey? And I mean, I enjoyed, the same happened to me. I really enjoyed StarCraft. I don't know if you ever heard of Brood Wars. It's a strategy game. And man, I still recall, that I would still enjoy it if I played it. You had the aliens and the hybrids and the humans, and that you built bases and then you attacked. And after that, and I was sitting there playing a game, and I lost, and someone just, rubbed me up the wrong way, and I got so angry. And I think I hit my table or something. And it was after my conversion. And my wife's like, what fell? What broke? And I was so embarrassed. I was like, nothing. Something just fell. And I thought to myself that night, I was lying in bed till 12 o'clock. I was like, okay, I got up. It was a 32 gig game. And I just said, delete. Bam. And I just started deleting all my games, because that competitiveness, you don't have to subject yourself to all of that. Why do that?
Yeah. I think also for me, my personal conviction is that, like, we used to have a Nintendo Wii, but like the first one with the remotes that you have to hold and stuff like that. And it always came with the standard base game of Wii Sports. I don't think there's anything inherently evil about bowling on the Nintendo Wii or playing tennis on the Nintendo Wii. But I think for myself, the thought process I've come to is, if Jesus is coming soon, I believe He's coming extremely soon. I believe that His second coming is around the corner, looking at how Bible prophecy is being fulfilled left and right. Then why would I want to spend even, an hour 30 minutes playing a video game when I could spend that time either sharing about Jesus, learning about Jesus, doing good unto others, something productive, something that just grows my character. Like, I don't know.
Read a book,
do some gardening, like learn something, So for me personally, that became a thing. No, I haven't played video games in years, but just personally, it became a conviction about how I spend time on my phone, for example, how I spend time on social media, how I spend time on YouTube, where I thought, yeah, Lord, but if you're coming this soon, why would I want to spend time on that when I want my heart to be ready? I want to be prepared for your second coming, right? So yeah, I think it also really is, we are living in a very different time, and we need to be aware of that Jesus is calling our hearts, say, come and spend time with me. And also in my mind, I just think, well, if my heart and my desire is still for, let's say video games or YouTube or social media, then I need to be careful that doesn't become a false god in my life. Because if my heart longs more for that thing than for God, then there's a problem there.
Yeah.
And if I'm not going to have, YouTube, Facebook, social media, or video games in heaven, then I need to be willing to give it up now, because otherwise how am I going to enjoy heaven when it's like, oh man, all of my little favorite things are not there,
You bring up an interesting point. If you were raised on reading the Bible and even as a little child reading the stories and everything,
right.
And if you took those away, would the child have a temper tantrum? But yeah, if you have that with the video games, it's like you take that away and it's like you can see the draw and the pull towards that.
Yeah.
And I think, kids are kids. Like they see the exciting colors and the challenges and things like that to play that. And I think that we rob them of these precious moments, especially when they're little, when their brain is being formative in those formative years, to set them on really healthy things that would encourage their growth and either mentally or physically. And we're not meant to be indoors for long periods of time or sitting there just doing nothing with eating junk food.
Right.
So.
Sounds like Sodom and Gomorrah. Idleness was the reason for the destruction, actually, one of the reasons. And we always gravitate.
Yeah.
I mean, Romans 7 always says we always gravitate towards evil. And it's our duty as well to fight against those urges. Like I said, TikTok, and then you go into the motion. What do you do when you get up from bed? And a lot of the times I don't pray first. I go, oh wait, I had an email to quickly check for work, or this or that, and then you check again, and you haven't prayed, and you're in that state again. Hey, you have to make it, military style. You have to do it in a religious tone.
It's already so difficult without these influences, just trying to do the correct thing. So why do we want to go and make it more difficult for ourselves? Why do we want to let these games in? Why do we want to open these doors to make it a harder challenge for ourselves?
Choose ye this day who you will serve. Guess what? The path of destruction is attractive. But stand there by the path and look, okay, this one is not going to be as fun in the nature that I have because of the fall. This one is more attractive, but what do I want? Do I want death or life? That is the two questions you ask. That's the only question.
I believe that to be true.
Yeah. I one of my favorite books is Pilgrim's Progress. It's an allegory of the Christian walk, and the character in it is actually named Christian. And I remember there's this section in there, and they actually made an animated movie about this book too. It's really good. It's on YouTube for free, called The Pilgrim's Progress. But there's a chapter in the book where he walks through Vanity Fair, and Vanity Fair is supposed to be symbolic of all of the fanfare around, like all of the attractions, and everybody's like having fun, and they're trying to sell you all of the goods, and they're like, buy for me this, buy for me that, and Christian is walking with Faithful, and they walk through Vanity Fair, and they say, no, we don't want this, we don't want this. They've been warned by evangelists, this is going to be something really difficult you guys have to go through. Long story short, because they said no, they got captured, they got imprisoned, they got tortured, and Faithful dies. That's why he's called Faithful. And Christian ends up escaping and finishing the Pilgrim's Progress until he gets to the celestial city, which is considered heaven.
Yeah.
But they were willing to rather lay down their life and die and be martyred than having and sealing their fate for eternity, than have all of these distractions from the world to take hold of them, and really they would lose their soul over it, right? Their eternity. So I think that should be a mindset of us as today. And for some people might think, oh, that's extreme. You can't play video games. I can't even play Wii Sports. Well, that's up to between you and God. You have to pray about it and ask the Lord, and he might convict you on that. He might not. That's between you and God. But I would say, like you said, Robert, choose you this day whom you will serve. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. It's worth it, in my opinion, to walk with the Lord and to ask him, search my heart, Lord. Show me where I need to give something up. Show me, because God is not a God or a father who's just sitting there being like, well, today I'm going to take this thing from them and they're just going to suffer. He's sitting there saying, as a loving parent, I want to help you grow. I'm going to help you become more like me in perfection and love and kindness and gentleness, right? But in order to do that, I have to take this thing away from you because this hurts you, this damages you, and you can't see it right now. You're having a hard time with it because you're attached to it. But if I take that away from you and you allow me to, because he never forces himself upon us, then you will live a better, happier life. You just have to trust me. And I think that's what he's trying to tell us.
And in the end, what we have to give up on this earth, is we can't even imagine how much better we will receive, how much more we will receive in heaven.
It will be cheap enough.
It will.
And just to clarify, before you get a wrong idea of what I said, is that I said this is maybe the boring road and this is the more attractive road. But trust me, if you follow the straight and narrow, it is not boring. Let me just clarify that. It's an amazing road to travel.
That's right.
Yeah, once you give your heart to the Lord.
Yeah.
Young people always mention that too, is like, oh, these books or this particular activity or video games or something that's just so exciting. And, I just don't see that excitement in the Bible. But I think once you really, truly fall in love with God and you're reading those things, it's like the pages come to life and you see it everywhere. And then just the prospect, Marlou, like you said, heaven is just this like grand thing that we can't even imagine how good that's going to be.
Yeah.
And so I think that the closer that I've gotten to my relationship with Jesus, it's like the more excited I get. And it just takes that like sort of reforming of the taste buds, right? When you eat unhealthy food, it's like that's what you crave, that's what you want. And then if you actually switch that and you begin to eat food that actually does good to your body, the more that you do that and then you try to go eat that unhealthy food, you're like, it doesn't even taste the same as this wonderful vegetable thing over here, And so I think that it just takes a bit of time to really reprioritize your focus, and you'll see that God's ways are true and just, and he can be extremely exciting.
Yeah. Amen.
If you look at the effects of that carrot or whatever you were saying, and how it transforms your body and how you can exercise without stopping, that is the most amazing feeling. But also the song, the things of earth will grow strangely dim. That is true. It does.
That's right.
And at the end, we will hate sin. That's where we should all be, hey? We should all get to that point. I'm not there yet, that I hate every part of sin, but that's where we should get, to that point.
Amen.